In the summer of 1999, eastern North Carolina was suffering from a severe drought. When people here saw Hurricane Dennis in the Atlantic, they actually hoped it would come and bring relief. On September the 5th, it did.
It wasn't a particularly powerful storm in terms of wind when it got back to North Carolina, but it sure did produce a lot of rain.
Rainfall totals in eastern North Carolina ranged from 6 to 16 inches. Just days later, Hurricane Floyd approached the eastern seaboard as a Category 4 storm. But Floyd weakened as it made a turn towards North Carolina. It was a Category 2 hurricane when it made landfall at Cape Fear September the 16th. What forecasters didn't anticipate was just how much rain would fall ahead of the storm.
I think everybody knew that somebody was going to get 6 to 12 inches of rain with Floyd itself, but the fact that there was going to be another 6 or 8 on top of that before the storm ever really arrived was the really tough thing to call.
It is a rain event, and these are not just drenching rains, these are flooding rains.
20 inches of rain fell on ground already saturated by Dennis.
We've got the worst flooding we've ever had in a storm.
Creeks and streams began to overflow their banks.
And it just started to grow and get bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where eventually you had a bunch of different creeks and streams that all merged together.
The water's supposed to come up another 6 feet.
Rivers rose to record levels. The water began flooding homes.
I've been there 30 years and it just breaks my heart.
It started covering secondary roads and interstates. Some counties were nearly 70% inundated.
The bottom line is, eastern North Carolina became pretty much a lake.
Floyd killed 52 people in North Carolina. Most of them drowned as they tried to flee to higher ground in their cars. More than 87,000 people registered with FEMA as storm victims. The floods destroyed about 8,000 homes and damaged more than 67,000. About 12,000 businesses were damaged. The flooding caused about $6 billion in property damage. It halted agricultural production in eastern North Carolina, causing more than $1 billion in farm losses. The floods killed nearly 3 million chickens and turkeys and more than 30,000 hogs.
There were people that lost their whole herds.
There were environmental losses too. Floodwaters were contaminated with human waste, hog and poultry waste, and fertilizers.
There was so much material washed into the Neuse and the Pamlico Sound estuaries that it created a condition called hypoxia, where all the oxygen was used up. Of course, that kills all the fish that are trapped in that area and anything that's attached to the bottom.
Scientists are still unsure about the long-term impact of residue from gasoline, oil, and chemicals that may still be on the bottom of Pamlico Sound.
The weather may have only lasted a couple of days, but boy, the impacts just went on for a long time.
Next, the long-term impacts on communities across eastern North Carolina.
It's probably a thing you may never totally recover from.
And we had animal rescue that started running almost immediately with just horrible situations where the water would come up so quickly. We'd come up in a boat and we'd see a dog's tail or the hind section of a dog and realize it was still chained, that it had drowned because the water rose so quickly that it couldn't get off the chain.